Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com or look for us on Facebook at Voices from the Bench. Greetings and welcome to episode 18 of Voices from the Bench. My name is Elvis from Zionsville, Indiana.
And I'm Barbara Wojcik from Oldsmar, Florida. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing good. Poor Elvis had both strains of the flu, so this is the first that he's even been able to talk or get up. So I don't know why anybody would get the flu in the middle of the summer, but my co-host got both of them, A and B.
Yeah, I'm a rarity. I'm a statistic. I tell you,
are.
Patient zero right here.
You are now.
How was your terrible vacation?
It was wonderful. Thank you. I biked, I ran, I drank, I went to the sun, to the beach, and now I'm back to reality. But I'm ready to hit it hard tomorrow. I'm looking forward to going back to work. Thanks for asking.
Are you really?
Yeah, wow. I am. I love what I do.
Must have been a good vacation to make you excited to go back.
I'm ready to go back.
Yeah.
Go rejuice your batteries back up and, get more passion and instill all that great stuff. And then you go back and you hit it hard. So I'm going to hit it hard. I'm ready to go.
Nice.
Thanks.
Well, we have an exciting interview today. A gentleman by the name of Von Groh. We had a great discussion with him. He's the guy that runs the Dental Technicians Guild, DTG. He's all over Facebook. They have a great symposium that they're doing next month.
Yep.
So you might want to make sure you check out the links on this website because he's an interesting guy and you're going to want to learn more. It's really neat. He did a great interview.
Yeah, we're super excited to bring this interview to you. We had it a little while back and can't wait to bring it to you. It's a really interesting story about how he got started. Just like all of us kind of fell into it. Enjoy.
Voices from the Bench. The interview. All right. I appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Von Groh from Utah, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Not originally, but I live here now, so it's home.
Excellent. So Von Groh with the Dental Technicians Guild, DTG, which we've all seen everywhere, especially on Facebook, joins us today to learn more about this exciting aspect of our industry. Von Groh, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Elvis. Thank you. Having a good Friday, trying to get the day done, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. It's been a week. It has been a week.
Yeah.
So tell us, Von, we always like to ask the people on our podcast, how did you get into the industry? What was your background? What pulled you in?
I just kind of stumbled upon it, and if I had $1 for every person that said that, I don't know that anyone aspires to be a dental technician. Unless let's just real talk, right? Unless somebody introduces you to it or you have a family member in the business so that's really how it happened. My uncle owned a dental lab and he was removables only, a denture lab. So when I graduated high school in 1995, he had a denture lab and I went to go work for him as a delivery driver. Didn't really know anything about the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out just driving for him. And then little by little, I worked my way into the lab, Pretty soon it was go pick up this case. And so I did that for a while. And then it was like, come back and I'm going to show you how to pour it up. I'm like, okay. So then that happened. And then it was like, okay, now I'm going to show you how to mount it. Okay, now I'm going to show you it. So over time, eventually he replaced me with another driver and I was in the lab off and running, doing many different things.
So you started off as a driver and I graduated in 87 and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my dad called me when I was partying in Orlando, having a great time, and yanked me back into Tampa. And that's where I started. And so I started delivering for my dad's company. And then the same thing, he said, well, I have a opening in opaque. And so I started opaquing and that's how I fell into it. So that's really cool. I love this podcast because I get to hear how people get into our industry. And I agree, we kind of fall into it and then we fall in love, and the rest is history.
You shouldn't have done such a good job pouring up that first model.
Yeah, no kidding. I could have done something to prevent all of this. I blew it. Just kidding.
The crazy outweighs the crazy.
That's right. For some reason we stay, right? It's like having kids, people that have kids, they, like you hear the cynics, right? Like, oh man, the kids just, whatever, took away my life. I can't go do things anymore. I can't. And then they have another one. And well, at some point, the joy must be outweighing the bad, right? Or else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I do love it. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I moved in there. I started doing more stuff, and I remember probably the worst job I had in there was we did same day relines. So I did relines all day, and basically had my own hazmat suit, and I would I'm not kidding, it was so disgusting. I worked off a lathe, and the first thing you do is carve all that crap out of there. So I had this big mandrel in there and just a ripper, right? We called it the ripper. And oh my gosh, it smelled like meat. That's all I could say. Bacon, and I don't know. It was weird. I'm like, what is going on?
Get me out of here! Yeah.
Yeah, it was some good times, but man, you're like, it's I had things disgusting. Flying in your face. Yeah, you're just somehow it gets around the guard and into your tries to get into you. So you gotta put on that full hazmat suit if you can, the goggles, the whatever you got.
So I see the work you do now on Facebook and pretty much everywhere. So if you think back, where did you get your training? Because I know that you're not doing that today. You're well above that.
Yeah. So what happened is I worked there for 5 years in my uncle's dental lab, and he had me. I basically did every job in the removables lab except for setting teeth. For some reason, he insisted. I mean, that was like his thing, right? I never got to do that. But I mean, I made wax bite rims. I did repairs, relines. I polished almost everything. I didn't do frameworks either. I didn't actually make them. We outsourced that. Mm-hmm. So I did all that kind of stuff, learned the ins and outs. And then I was the guy that stayed and packed all of the cases too. So we used the Lucitone 199, we were doing, packing all the cases. And we did a lot of ethnic gum cases actually, because we were there. I grew up in California. So I was there in the San Francisco Bay Area, just south of Oakland. So we'd go up there, and there was a few welfare type organizations, like medical clinics and stuff that we worked for. So we would go and pick up stuff there. But I remember that, having to choose, it would give me all these different shades, and so I was packing all of the acrylic at night and putting them into the boil out, and then I'd break them out in the morning, trim them up, and then, give them to my boss, my uncle. So 5 years of removable, and then sorry, I'll try to make this shorter because we're already
no, you're
10
you're
minutes
fine.
into this program. Okay,
you're fine.
But yeah, so to answer your question, so from there in 2000, I left on a mission for my church. I went to Santiago, Chile. So actually went to Chile and spent 2 years with the people there, and
wow,
was preaching the gospel.
That's not a trip.
Yeah, it was quite a trip, and just living among the people too. And I had some of the best experiences of my life there, to be honest. And I picked up some Spanish, so I do speak Spanish. And I came back, and I moved to Utah. Again, there's some details in there, but I moved to Utah. My grandfather passed away. They lived here in Utah. Came to the funeral. My grandma said, "Hey, do you and your brother want to come up here and live? And you guys can go to school, and and I have a basement apartment that you guys can live in." So I was just off my mission. I didn't really have very many plans at that point. So, but what I did know how to do is work in a lab. So when I got here and I needed a job in the summer, because it was just starting summertime, I called around to some labs, and I got hired on at Utah Valley Dental Lab here in Provo, Utah. So, and I got hired in the model department, and I was doing cosmetic models. So for the first time, I got introduced kind of to the aesthetic, like to the cosmetic world side of things, right? The fixed side. Mm-hmm. And so some of it was new to me, some of it was not. They also had a small denture department, but they didn't have any room in there. It was actually really small. 2 guys was more than they needed in there. So I just started working in the model room. I accepted that position because in my mind, I thought I was going to be going to school in the fall, and lo and behold, what happened, Barbara, is I stayed, talked to my bosses, and they're like, hey, did you ever just consider doing this? And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, no, not for long term. And they kind of posed a plan, and they talked to me about, actually what was interesting is what they did is they called me into their office, and I went in there. And they slid over a paper that had there was doctors on this list, lawyers, doctors, dentists, all this stuff, and all the median range salaries.
Salary, yeah.
It said, hey, is there any reason why you think you can't make just as much or more than people on this list? And I said, no, I wouldn't. I'd say no. I wouldn't believe that, Yeah. And they said, what if we told you that we had people here that are doing that right now? And I went, wow. And I guess I'd have to believe you, or just go and ask them myself. So They were really smart in doing that because it was true. That's what they were cultivating there at the time. They had. It was early 2000s. The boom of cosmetic dentistry, I would say, was just still in effect, So, they were killing it in that arena. So, yeah, I stayed. I actually went, this is what they really offered. They said, hey, we used to have a school here that did like the, what is it called? The carving PTC and all those programs, right? Yeah. They had all the videos and all that stuff. And they said, if you want to, you could continue to work here full time. And then after you're done with an 8-hour shift, getting hands-on experience, you could clock out and you could go into our back room and have access to all those materials. And you could put yourself through that training. So I was like, wow. So yeah, I took a few weeks to think about it, but came back and said, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it. Let's give it a try. So they said, look, we'll turn in all your tests for you. We'll get you, but you could essentially just go to quote unquote school and put yourself through this course. So I did. I took the next year or so and just did a lot of this stuff by myself. And all the while I was getting hands-on training. I eventually moved out of the model department and went to waxing, and Mark Willis, who was one of the owners there at the time, he kind of took me under his wing. I don't know why. I'm lucky. I look back now and I'm like, I don't know why it was me, but he actually eventually just sat me right next to him and just would teach me every day. So I waxed for him and pretty soon did bigger and bigger cases till I was doing full mouth reconstructions and stuff like that under his tutelage. So really, that was great. I really thought he was hard on me, but looking back, I wouldn't change a single thing. He was the kind of guy, just, you bring him something, he'd say, this looks like total crap. Like, you didn't apply some of the things that I've taught you. Go take this back and don't bring it to me again until you've done everything that you can do first. And, I hated those days, and now I love those days because he did not let me touch ceramics until I waxed for him for about 3 years. So, wow. Yeah, most guys out of school, they want to just do ceramics immediately.
Yep.
And they would consider being put in the model room as like a huge downgrade. Like, no, we didn't even spend time on model work.
Oh yeah.
I want to do ceramics now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a mistake because, you go straight to that before you wax and learn morphology and the shapes of teeth and spend more time on that. You're really just cutting out your own legs from underneath you. That's my opinion.
I love the fact that you had a mentor and he sort of kind of like smelled you and knew that, what you were capable of and took you under his wing like that and taught you everything you know. I think that's really
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Because honestly, like you can't see it when it's happening. And then when you look back, you're like, man, I understand that now. Like that had to happen to bring me to this point, to bring me to this point, to bring me to that point. And now I'm where I'm at today. But you don't always have answers for it and you don't understand it while it's happening. But retrospect is super interesting.
Sure
is he still around?
Oh, yeah. Mark Willis. Yeah, they both owned it together. Mark Willis and Richard Willis owned the lab together. And then at some point they had a big falling out and Mark Willis left the lab and I went with him.
Cool.
So him and I started Experience Dental Studio, and he is still running his successful lab. He actually close by me here in Utah, in Linden, Utah. So he's doing great.
Awesome.
So when did you open up your lab now, Dark Horse Dental Studio?
So Dark Horse, I started, I think January 1st is when it went into effect of 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I guess I could look at the actual articles of organization and when it was filed, but that's what I want to say. It was the very beginning of the year, 2012. And actually, what happened is Mark Willis and I started another lab called Performance Dental Lab, and we grew it within his lab, Experience, and then I moved out of his lab when we got big enough, and then I started Dark Horse Dental Studio a few years later, just as a small boutique lab, because that was my background. And Performance Lab, the one we built together, was kind of more of a middle of the road pricing and quality and stuff like that. This was back in 2009 when we started that lab. So anyway, interesting road. It was a lot of components there, but I basically worked in like a 60-man lab and like started the lab with Mark and we built it up to like 18 people. And then we started Performance Dental Lab, which was a totally different tier of pricing and everything, and built that up to 10 or 11 people. And then Dark Horse Dental Studio is just me and one other guy. And that's where I am today. So the last 5-6 years, that's been me, is just Dark Horse Dental Studio.
How did you come up with the name Dark Horse?
You know what? I honestly, 2 reasons. The first one was I love names that are different. I mean, my name's different, it's Vaughn, just VON. So I kind of grew up with that, but I wanted a name that wouldn't be easy to forget,
Yep.
So that was one reason. If you hear Dark Horse Dental Studio, it's like, okay, well, that's weird. And why did you name it that? And I won't forget it probably. And the second one is I just like what it stands for, right? It's like the unexpected winner in a race, the dark horse in a race so it has a lot of meaning for me there. It's like the unexpected winner, the underdog. I love underdog stories. That's like my favorite. Something that wasn't meant to live or happen, and it does. And it's like largely successful. I'm so attracted to documentaries of people that happened to, or teams, or anything, that just, there was no expectation and
rises above. Yep.
Expectations.
Awesome.
So
love it.
Thank
you for sharing that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dark Horse is a very profound name. I like it. What do you specialize over there at Dark Horse?
Yeah, I do all ceramic, but if I had to choose a niche, it's feldspathic veneers on platinum foil. So that's really what I specialize in, what my niche is. And again, I learned, Mark Willis introduced me to that, and then I just did lots and lots of cases. I kind of came up with my own technique for swedging, which is, I would say, the art form of forming the platinum foil to the veneer, the facial of the working die or the veneer. And I kind of developed the one that I use today on my own, but it was when I was working for Mark. So I always want to give him full credit and try to be as transparent as possible that I do not claim to have come up with this idea or be the authority in foil. I can only speak to how I do it, and in my experience, what has worked the best for me, like with my clients and everything. But that's really what I specialize in, is I do little glass slippers that fit over your original teeth. Non-prep or minimal prep is the specialty that I'm focused on. So
I actually have a client here in Oldsmar, Florida, Jason Horowitz. And he every time he does a case with you, he calls me over and we take a look at it when he seats it, and it's just unbelievable. And he's like, we don't do feldspathic here at my laboratory, but I love your work. I've seen it in the mouth. I've seen it seated, how easily and how beautifully they seat, and my clients rave about you. So it's funny. It's funny that you're based in
Barbara,
Utah.
This is so crazy.
You're in Utah. I'm in Tampa.
This is so crazy because. Yeah, but that is so crazy because I just made this connection that you are you. I know who you are then through because he would say, Barbara, he would talk about you. Jason said, he says great things about you. And I know that he uses you for other things. Is that right?
Yeah, but he pushes me to get better with your name, and I aspire to do that type of work, and so it's really cool. So, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah. So that's so weird. Okay, now I totally get it. Because you know what? When I read your full name, it's I went, wait, what? Because is it Wojin? Or
it's like Trojan, but Wojin.
Wojin. Okay. Trojan Wojin. Okay. Yeah. So that's awesome. Okay. Because now when I read your full name, I went, I know I've heard this lady's full name somewhere, but where did I? Okay. So I get it now. And I appreciate your kind words. He also said really nice things about you. And so here's an interesting thing about being in a niche, Barbara, is I don't have clients that send me all of their work. So I am used to having my clients have other labs, and I'm totally fine with it. And here's why. I love what I do. I love just doing like the prepless and minimal prep veneers and the feldspathic and stuff like that. And so I know full on that my clients have other labs that they work with for things that they specialize in, and so I may have a client that I only hear from like every 3 months. They just pop out of nowhere and say, Vaughn, I got this case for you, and I'm like, great. And you know what? I love that. My clientele pool has to be a little bit bigger because of that, because, I only see some guys only have a case specifically to what I do that comes in the door like every so often. Maybe some guys are like once a month. Some guys are like I said, like some people every like 6 months. Like all of a sudden this guy goes, hey man, I just got this perfect case for foil veneers. And then they'll just call me up and we'll get into the case together. And I've grown to just really like that. And I enjoy especially this is a rare occasion where I get to meet some of the other lab people. But anyway, that's kind of my world is I say, look, when you have a case like this, I hope you think of me, but I'm okay that you are used to having your own lab or your local lab or whoever you're used to working with. But if you want my service on some of these foil veneers or whatever, then please give me a call and let's do a case together. Awesome. So anyway.
Cool.
It's got to take a lot of pressure off you knowing that you don't need to get every case the doctor does. It's got to make it a little bit
you know what? It is. It is easier and it's fun. And, I pre-schedule all my cases so I don't have work like stacking up where it just, I don't know, like I don't ever feel that pressure because my clients know to call me first. I mean, that really saves my butt is pre-scheduling my cases and things like that. But really takes the pressure off and helps me focus on the things I love to do the most. So.
Absolutely. So do you do any relines?
You know what? I don't.
Hell no. You can just say it. Hell no.
The bacon smell is still fresh in my nose. So I'm like, no thanks. I'm just kidding. Yeah, interestingly enough, is I don't do any removables here. So I guess back to your original question, I do all ceramic. So I will do like zirconia frameworks and stuff, but I'll layer. And then I do pressed, a lot of pressed cases as well. But still, I'd probably say about half of what I'm doing is this foil technique, which I just love, you know. And there's only really a handful of guys out there still doing this technique. I mean, regularly. I guess they pull it out. It's funny because every like dental show or anything I'm at, I make friends with a lot of old people. That's not knocking old people, but you know, they're like, oh man, I used to do that in the 70s, or I was doing that. You know, like I remember foil veneers. You know, I did jacket crowns and veneers with foil, and so it's fun. I like kick back and hang out with the older crowd, but you know, a lot of things just come in a big rotation. You know, they come back around and people start using them again or relearning the technique. So again, I'm not the authority. I can show people how I do it, but I definitely don't say, hey, yeah, these are mine, or I invented it. You know, you can't really like patent or own a process, right? I mean, you can trademark a name or something, but you know,
I think you're definitely partly responsible for bringing it back around, because I do have a fair amount of clients that call me and, you know, they're like, do you do this foil technique? I read, you know, this DTG or Facebook or your name or your lab, and, you know, they inquire about doing them. And so I definitely would tell you that I personally field a lot more phone calls regarding that. So you definitely have brought it back around. It's pretty cool. I wish we did do them, because it's, you know, I get a lot of questions. I'm probably losing a lot of money. I'll refer them all to you though, if you'd like.
Oh, well, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate Vaughn. That was part 1. I like it how he started off as a driver and now he does what he does. It's always amazing to me. I don't know of anybody at our lab that started as a driver. We always hire retired gentlemen.
So back then it was 18-year-olds and now it's 65-year-olds. It's funny how...
That's awesome. Join us next week, part 2. He gets more into how the DTG started and what their goals are. It's pretty neat. Well, I still need to get people to check out the t-shirt fundraiser that we have going on. Make sure you go up to the website. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a link to buy a Voices from the Bench t-shirt. All profits get donated to the Foundation for Dental Laboratory Technology.
We are extremely passionate about, obviously.
Yeah, so get yourself a t-shirt. All money gets donated for a good cause, and you get to sport the coolest t-shirt in the industry. So please, go check it out. It is a limited run. I think on August 6th, this fascinating thing ends. So make sure you pick up a t-shirt before then. The more the better.
And don't forget about Elvis and I. We're raising money also. We have the triathlon on August 24th. So any of you good-hearted people want to give to us for being crazy asses and doing triathlons on the 24th, please do. We'd appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. You poor baby. I'm so sorry.